Corporate needs you to find the differences between this picture and this picture. Intel has told us there are at least 7.
Okay, I already see one. Give him. Okay.
They're the same picture.
Hi guys, this is Jack with Team Empire, and today I got Lupe and Frank to cover some very exciting reveals for not just some new promo cards for V and Standard, but also the introduction to the newest anime season and series. Lupe, Frank, thanks for joining me.
Hey guys, very excited to be here today. We have a new promo for Lyrical that I'm excited to go over, and very excited to talk about the little anime reveal we got.
I'm just here because I'm cool.
Yep. For a little bit of context, Frank has not seen the anime, so I gave him a little recap, a little hasty recap of what happened at the end. But before we cover the 6th season of the D series, we're going to cover the promo cards. The first ones we'll go over are the ones for V Premium / Premium. And that is the ride deck, discard fodder. Not ride deck, but the ride discard fodder, where if your Vanguard's grade 1 or lower, you discard them to look at top 5 of your deck. Choose a grade 2 or lower card from among them, reveal it, and add it to your hand and shuffle your deck. So we got one for Narukami, which is Dragon Dancer Madeline, and one for Pale Moon, which is Knife Strike Pardos. So I'll go over the Narukami, and if one of y'all can go over the Pale Moon. The Narukami one's unique effect is auto Vanguard Record Circle once per turn. When this unit attacks a Vanguard while boosted, cost Soul Blast 1, choose a column and bind all of your opponent's front row rear guards in that column, and you move all of their opponent's back row rear guards in the same column to open front row. So, it's just kind of alright, just very standard. I think Lupe was talking about it, just all these ride discard fodder cards have very standard effects that you would expect from the clans.
Yeah, I mean, this card is basically like a mini sweep command, which, I mean, a mini sweep command ain't nothing to
yeah,
laugh at,
but
it's exactly what you would expect.
Yeah, but it's not as good as sweep command, though. Not even close.
Oh, no, because sweep command can bind the other rear guard. Oh, it is a mini one, because it just binds that one and moves it up.
Well, also sweep command.
I think the War Beast is actually a fairly good card, because it sets you up to where you could actually even Leslie a turn early.
Yeah, because the War Beast. Yeah, because Pardos says when this unit attacks while boosted, cost counterblast 1.
You choose a different unit card, and it doesn't specify equal to or less than Vanguard. So if you ride this Vanguard, you can literally get your Alice Leslie loop out on grade 2, which is kind of crazy.
That is pretty cool. Yes.
I just don't know if it would. It wouldn't really probably get put in the deck for any of the other cards, though, just because it's not a workoroid and it kind of would mess up the ratios a little bit.
Yeah, and even
the effect's really cool.
Yeah, and even then, having these cards is very nice for mainly premium, but I mean V too. For increasing consistency for the clans is always nice, especially since they don't have a ride deck and you want to be able to find your optimal ride targets. And actually, I just mentioned it, but especially in V, because V a lot of time comes down to, do you find your correct ride targets? And if you do, you kind of win the game. If you don't find them, then you kind of lose. So having these in a format like V is very appreciated. But like Frank said, there's not a lot of space in Nightmare Dolls anyways, because you have kind of your optimal pieces. Lupe, anything to say about these cards?
No, I mean, Frank pretty much covered the War Beast. I mean, yeah, you'd have to, purposefully lower consistency to try to get it more high roll to get the loop out sooner, but
I definitely think the War Beast would probably work fairly good in Harry.
Harry would, really appreciate this.
It gets that one dragon guy out.
Yes, the Pop, Starry Pop Dragon.
It's Pop? Yeah, that. I was I know it's Pop Dragon something, but I don't remember the full name.
Yeah.
I just know what he looks like and played against him.
Well, even then, you can call the Pigeon, which can get the Starry Pop.
Oh, yeah, and Pigeon.
Yeah, just get even more multi-taps. Which
definitely an extender for Harry.
Yes.
More so than Nightmare Dolls, for sure.
For more generic Pale Moon decks that aren't limited to archetypes. But now let's cover the 3 standard promos. It's actually what kind of works out because I'll be covering the first one, Frank will be covering the second one, and Lupe will be going over the third one. The first card we have is Bringer of New Style, Surus, who is a grade 0 for Keter Sanctuary, and the reason why he's a grade 0 is because he's an Alden support card. His 2 effects are Continuous Rigor Circle. During your turn, if you have a Vanguard with Alden in its card name, this unit gets power plus 2k. And then Auto Rigor Circle. Once per turn, when your other unit is placed on Rigor Circle by the ability of your Vanguard with Alden in its card name, costs counterblast 1, choose one of your rear guards and stand it. So this is good, obviously, for a multitude of reasons. One, it's a grade 0. So now Alden has even more grades to put in its deck so that you don't miss its 3 grade condition, which if you've seen my deck test, you all know that I royally messed up on that one. So if I had this card, it would have been nice. And 2, obviously, with its counterblast skill to restand a rear guard, you now have 5 attacks in Alden as opposed to 4 attacks, which increases the deck ceiling.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the deck is so reliant on the different grades, so it's really good that it's a grade 0. And I'm sure Steve is going to be very excited for this promo because Steve is really excited for Alden. I think he's going to try to make it his main alongside with Full Blast.
Yeah.
So pretty hype.
Well, and another thing with this card is Alden calls 2 cards, can call up to 2 cards with grades equal to or less than the unit you bounced. So a lot of time, if you bounce to grade 3, you're just calling that grade 3. But now if you have this card in your hand, you don't have to worry about that. You can just bounce that grade 3, call that same grade 3 along with the grade 0. And it'll be a 8k booster because of its first skill. So, very nice card. I know people are going to be upset that you need it, and that's a promo, but that's kind of like the hands we've been dealt. So, hopefully these will be easier to get. Now
I also want to mention that I think this is the first grade 0 promo we've gotten in D series.
It is, and it's also the first grade 0 normal unit since Trickstar.
That's
It's true.
Which is starter deck 1. So, very interesting. Now we have the second card. Frank, if you want to go over that one.
So, this next card is going to be Silver and Horn Beast Maliva.
Maliva, I think.
Is it Maliva? Oh, it's double E. Yeah. I could see it either way.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's a fate made up name.
A Beast. If your Vanguard is Sylvanhorn Beast, King of Calamity, Magnolia Mass, this card gains all the following effects. Auto, when this is placed on rearguard, cost, Soul Blast 1, and this unit gets plus 5 power until the end of turn, and if you did not countercharge this turn, countercharge 1. Continuous rearguard / Guardian Circle, this unit can intercept from the back row and gains plus 5k shield for each of your Dragon Tree markers. So as someone that plays Magnolia Mass myself, first and foremost, the main issue we're missing right now is having a countercharger. So having a card that's basically specifically for that is really good. It's a 15k attacker, but we all know that this is Magnolia Mass we're talking about. So this is going to be a 30k attacker on your Dragon Tree marker.
Mm-hmm.
And then it can intercept from anywhere from 10 to potentially 20k shield, because usually you want your 3 markers. I don't think I ever played a game with Mass where I would extend my markers more than that. But maybe with this countercharger we might be able to actually do that.
Exactly.
I'm thinking in the list that I'm currently running, this card only really clashes with the grade 1 searcher.
Oh,
not
Sorol?
searcher, but the Sorol. I think that's the only card it technically clashes with for the soul management, but for the most part with Mass, I've always had quite a bit of soul to do stuff.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Sometimes Magnolia Mask feels like it has infinite soul at a certain point because you're just increasing
Literally
your soul.
at one point on at Clash, I think I had 9 soul for Magnolia, and I'm just like, what am I supposed to do with this?
So
Just
turning
'cause,
that
like,
extra soul into countercharge is very nice. And also, even though Magnolia did have a countercharger in the form of Alpin, you never really wanted to... Like, it's always nice to call that if you played it in your deck with Forced Grow, but this card is much better to call because it immediately refunds that Forced Grow so you can use it to spread more markers. So yeah, this card is an optimal call target
is
off of
another
Forced
thing.
Grow.
Yeah, because just the fact that it's a Soul Blast, you can literally basically CB1 call however many units with Force Grow. Soul Blast one, get your CB back immediately.
It
Plus,
basically
now you
turns
have a card that intercepts from the back row, which
it,
is insane.
it
to
basically
me.
turns Force Grow into a Soul Blast 1 revive as many markers you have. Like
Pretty much, yeah.
it's really
And
powerful.
and for Magnolia, making it a Soul Blast over a Counter Blast just like makes the deck ceiling so much crazier.
Yeah, and if you're not playing against a deck that doesn't retire, like Gandiva is not really in Japan right now. Like he's not doing anything at the moment.
I
This
honestly, with Force Grow being a card, even in the Gundam matchup, I'm just like, okay, call a new board because you just retired everything.
well,
The only
yeah,
card or the only deck that we have in standard right now that even does anything that would ruin that would be Vermilion, but Vermilion's not really strong enough with its bind mechanic to make it to where this card's not insane.
the only other thing I can think of that would actually fuck this card over is Nirvana Jiva if they manage to get their 5 original dress and just pop the entire board when they attack. But even then, he has to restand in order to activate that effect. So if you have this guy in the back row, you can just intercept with him first to have like a 25 to 30k shield maximum. Like, so this card's insane. It's really good. I think we've already like established this is once again there probably 3 to 4 of, maybe even 2 of, because you can just revive him a lot. So really nice card. But now
I
let's
definitely think in the grade 2 lineup, this is not a card that you want to see early. You want to
yes,
see post grade 3 turn.
yeah, post grade 3 because you're always going into masks.
Yeah, so post mask definitely, especially because we also have another promo that goes with this, which is Habitat.
Yep.
You know, you go your hopefully Persona Ride turn with Magnolia Mask, you Habitat, call this guy off, Soul Blast out your Persona Ride, easy 15k attacker, plus you get your CC back.
Yep. But now let's move on to the last promo, which is Lupe will cover that one since it is a Michu support card.
Yes, so I am back here with another Brant reveal. This is Michu's newest Cannonball card. It is Beware the Sneeze of Fireworks, Set Order Cannonball. It's very nice artwork, and it actually really works well with the name. It is just she accidentally set off her cannons while sneezing, so that's pretty cool. But now to get into the skill, you play the card with CB1, so very similar to the Grade 3 one. And then the second skill is also very similar to the Grade 3 Cannonball card. Auto, when this card is put into your order zone, draw a card. So with this card, you essentially have X amount of cards of the Grade 3 one, being X however many extras you want to run of this. So you can do 8 essentially of just put in the order zone draw, which is really, really good. It helps Michu survive in the meta as to how fast it's gotten. And then its second skill, or third I guess you can say, is Act Order Zone. If you have a Grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Michu in his card name, put this card into your drop. Choose one of your units and it gets power plus 10k until the turn. Choose one of your opponent's rear guards, and until end of your opponent's next turn, that unit cannot intercept nor stand during their stand phase. So it doesn't give 5k to 3 different things, but it gives 10k to one specific unit. So you can just give it all to Nokono, having her be have that power for boost and for when she swaps places. It's also really good because it paralyzes. And that paralyze has always been such a strong mechanic, and it's at first only limited to Mega Colony, but D-Series has been kind of experimenting with it, giving it to other clans, or sorry, not clans, nations. So it's pretty cool to have, and this card works really well with Michu's double rare from the first set, the one who, when she attack hits, Soul Blast 1, choose a Cannonball card from your drop, put into the order zone. So now you have more targets for the on hit, which makes it a lot more threatening. And it's really nice with Michu's new double rare, who on place, pause, put a card from your hand to soul, choose a Cannonball card from your drop, put it into your hand. If your damage is 4 or more cards, counter charge. But what's really nice is you bring the Cannonball from your drop into your hand. So you're setting it up to use ready all set up to rest itself to draw. You just have a lot more draw power in this deck, which it didn't really have before. You really needed to run draw triggers to survive, but now you don't really have to run all the draw triggers anymore, and you can run fronts instead for extra shield value. I really like this promo, and I'm very excited for it.
Well, and here's the thing about this card, along with the grade 3, is that it's not restricted to using one per turn. So if you have both the grade 2 and the grade 3, or even hell, 2 of the grade 2s and 1 of the grade 3s, you could send all of them to the drop to give Nokuno 30k power, and then choose both your opponent's front row. They can't stand or intercept, which lowers shield value, and then give 2 of your other units plus 10. So it's that, with the combination of how many cards Michu can put into the order zone, you can have some really insane pressure turns.
Yeah, I could easily see players running maybe more of all setup just to try to get turbo these into there. Because while there is counter charges in the deck in the form of the promo, or the original promo, sorry, and then the double rare we mentioned, the deck is kind of CB heavy because you're using Michu and Nokuno skill every turn, so it's 2 CB a turn. So I could see some players trying to get a little more greedy with their builds, running more copies of all set up, since you can search your cannonballs with grade 2 in the right deck.
I also want to mention that the actual theming, because that's one thing I think that Standard always does really well, and I love it personally as like a player, is how they translate the art and name into the skills. The reason why this even paralyzes in the first place is because some people will get startled by the fireworks going off in the middle, I assume a courtyard. So people would be like startled by that. So that's why it paralyzes, which is a really neat effect. It's not just because they're doing it to do it, they're doing it because it matches with the artwork, which is something that I think, again, Standard does super well.
Yeah, this card is 100% thematic from its name, its art, even its flavor text is literally cute sneezing noises. So it's 100% flavorful and on point with what it's doing.
And so those are it for the 3 promo cards, or technically 5, but 3 standard promo cards. And now, speaking of Standard, we will get to what I view as the main meat of this video. So earlier today, we got revealed the new D-Series anime, which is technically D-Series Season 6, which is Cardfight Vanguard DivineZ. That's DivineZ with a Z as opposed to an S. This is the newest anime. That's all we got is the name, along with something else, which we'll show in a second. But we got revealed that we'll get more information on this anime December 12th, and then the anime will come out January of 2024. So it's a little while. A little unfortunate we had to wait so long, especially after like just seeing this. I want to see more of it. But we also got revealed the main character of this anime, who looks very familiar. Pretty much just looks like Yu Yu and Toya fused. Like, a lot of people were kind of complaining that he looks exactly like Yu Yu. Which I will think once his color scheme is revealed, he'll look a little less like Yu Yu, but it's especially the face. Like, I was really confused when I first saw this design, because I thought it was just time skip Yu Yu.
Yeah, his face and hair really, really look like Yu Yu. I think, Jack's right that when we get his full color palette, he'll look a lot different, but he'll always look similar just because of how his face is, especially the eyes. I think it's mostly the eyes that really make him look like Yu Yu.
Yeah, it's definitely the eyes, and it's just that clamp style. I think they just needed to make either the hair different or the eyes different, and that would have really made this character stand out. And again, we don't know his name. We don't know a lot, but we can definitely make some speculations, mostly me and Lupe, because we did watch the anime, but based on those predictions and like Frank's knowledge on the game, we can come up with some predictions as to what a potential new mechanic would be. And the reason why I think there will be a new mechanic is because Persona Ride's great, right? Like, Persona Ride's a really good mechanic in my opinion, and they've done a lot with Persona Ride. Almost everything you can do with Persona Ride. Because at first, Persona Ride was solely turn 4. Then we got cards that interacted with Persona Ride, whether that be Vanguards or Rear Guards that have to activate their effects if you Persona Rode, therefore balancing them. Then we got effects like Masks, which can Persona Ride not only into different units, different evolutions, but also get early Persona Rides. We have cards like the Craycross Epic Evolutions, which are different units that can activate additional effects along with Persona Ride. Then we got double Persona Ride with the Greya. Like, in my opinion, we have done everything we possibly can with Persona Ride, and now I think we got to move on with something new, especially since they're rebranding into DivineZ. It's not just a dress series, it's a new D series. So, what do y'all think? Do y'all think they're going to make a new mechanic in the first place?
I think so, especially, we have 3 new trial decks coming out, and so there needs to be something besides it just being the new series and like 3 new characters to grab people. Or who even knows, maybe one of the trial decks might be a returning character. But if they're returning, I'd like them to further their deck, like introduce something new with it, or play a new deck, which also kind of benefits the idea of a new mechanic. But I could also see them expanding on older mechanics if it's not necessarily new. One mechanic I would like to see introduced to the D series is the ticket system, because I think it'd really help with defensive options, which is what people are wanting. And one that, this is just personally, in D series we got a lot of like Legion type artwork, but nothing ever Legion. I think it'd be really cool to see a Legion type mechanic come back. Maybe not necessarily like the putting your triggers back in the deck, but like 2 units joining forces on the Vanguard circle. Because the closest we got to it was arming your cards.
Frank, what do you think? What is your opinion about if there's going to be a new mechanic, and what would you want?
Personally speaking, just from it being like just the way that just looking at the card art, right? Or not the card art, but the art for
The logo?
Anime opening. Yeah. The fact that the Z is like that, it makes me think of like Deer Days having the skill. So maybe we're going to get introduced to something maybe called the Z skill, because the way that Z is, it definitely looks like you're supposed to realize that that's not the same like font or whatever that they use for the rest of it. It definitely is out of place in there.
You're right. You're actually right about that. That would be a very interesting mechanic if we got skills. Kind of like, it reminds me of Yu-Gi-Oh! With their less popular format Speed Duels. How they do the thing from Duel Links, where they have their skills and they flip them over and stuff. I think that could be a potential new mechanic for them. But I think you're right, Frank. I think they will introduce something maybe along the lines of like new types of units, like Z units, kind of like how we got G units, but now we might get a new one, which is Z units.
That'd be very interesting to see.
Well, and then I think people, personally, from like all the card game anime that I've watched, which is a lot, but normally whenever people are saying like the new mechanic is purely going to be a defensive mechanic, which I would love, like what Lupe said, if the ticket system was part of the mechanic or part of the anime. But I personally don't think they would do a solely defensive mechanic for this new series, because normally in card game anime, and this is just marketing in general, when they have a new series, they want new mechanic, they want that mechanic to be flashy. Like, they want it to have a big presentation in the anime. They want the main character to use it in order to blow out the opponent. So I think the mechanic is going to be inherently offensive, because if a mechanic isn't offensive, then how are you going to win with it? That's just my opinion. And they're going to have another mechanic, which maybe it'll be tied to that same mechanic, that will be defensive in nature. In fact, Frank's idea actually made me think of something. If you notice in the logo, the div part and the NEZ part are red and blue, and they converge into a purple eye. This could mean that either there's 2 different types of cards, and one of them are the red side are the offensive cards, and the blue side are the defensive cards. Like, maybe they'll have 2 different types of units, very akin to G units or G guards. Or maybe it'll just be the purple cards. We haven't had a card with a purple border yet that might actually be the new mechanic. In my opinion, that's mainly what they're going to do, and that's mainly what the title is telling us.
Yeah, I would be very surprised if DivineZ didn't introduce at least one new mechanic. And I do think Jack has a point. I actually didn't notice that at first, but the letters do create a purple, and then even the circle around them, it's the blue and red meeting into sort of purple type color in the middle. So kind of makes a lot of sense to bring in like a new card. And one mechanic me and Jack have been wanting, it's not necessarily new because it's kind of like what Gize does, but like a double-sided card. I think if you were to play off the colors, it'd be a very cool way. You can have it start a certain way, but then you have to flip over the card to get into, let's just call it the Z state for now.
The Z state. That's a cool name. I like that.
But to activate it, you have to flip the card over. And let's say it did have a purple border, then you have dual-sided cards, which is something that, besides Gize, I don't think the card Vanguard has ever done.
They have not done that, and their other card games do it a lot. Like Frank plays Magic, and I know for a fact that they have transform cards, very akin to like the werewolves.
Oh, are you talking about the night and day mechanic?
Yeah, the night and day mechanic. Like Magic has cards that transform.
Yeah, maybe we might even get something crazy like Yu-Gi-Oh! Field Spell or something like that alters the game.
Yeah, that would be very cool. The title is actually something that I thought about too. Lupe and I had a theory, and I know a lot of people in the Vanguard community had this theory, where this is something that I was telling Frank about. In the final episode, spoilers for Wildress, of Wildress Season 3, the final episode, the final attack ends with, I forgot his name, Stravirina, using his giant, big Excalibur fucking sword to chop the dragon tree in half, and it looks like the planet is glowing with a bunch of, like, orange divine energy, because we know that Virina is fueled by prayers. And at the very end, the very last two shots you see of Wildress are the planet Cray glowing blue along with the Colosseum that they fought at doing the same. So this not only confirms that Cray is real in the D series, but it also is a hint that maybe when Virina attacked, the planet was once again fueled with divine energy, because we know from the lore that divine energy was gone after Gize and Messiah left the planet. So now a divine energy has come back into Cray, which might signify this is very similar to Stride. Because Strides take the energy from the planet and turn them into a new form. And while it might not be alternative futures like G units are, it might be ascending into a higher plane. And that's what Lupe was saying, like maybe they'll flip over and then they'll enter an ascension state. Or the Z state.
Yeah, maybe it'll be like a precursor to Strides.
Exactly.
Right? Like,
yeah.
Because Strides are supposed to be like them in the future. It's like, well, what happens to them between?
Yeah, exactly.
What this whole mechanic is supposed to be, is that in between state of them where they're not quite Strides, but they might have Stride-esque skills.
Stride-esque effects, yeah. And then they could, and this would be a great segue into two types of support, because we kind of already have that. We have a lot of types of support actually in Standard. We have the Stride deck set supports. We have grade 4 support, which we're getting in set 13 with like the dragons, along with just a bunch of cards that support the grade 4s, like the early riders. Then we got Persona Ride support. So then this could give us a fourth branch, which is the Z support. Pretty much, we can call it like the DZ support cards. That the new grade 3s probably won't have Persona Ride, but they'll have their own support cards. And then if they want to, they can add Persona Ride support to certain sets so they can still support the old decks.
Yeah, and this is it's still related to like mechanics we'd like to see, but one I've talked to Jack about that just going off the two colors made me remind me of that one mechanic that D introduced that they didn't really go anywhere with was dual nation cards, and I would really like to see that expanded. It might not ever happen, especially now that we're entering a new era in D series, but I think going into a new era you could expand on a past mechanic, and it's still recent, it's very recent, but it is past because we're no longer in just standard D series. I think it'd be just cool to expand on that.
It would be very cool. Maybe that could be like a villain or antagonist thing in the series as well. Like you have these fusion cards. The other thing, there's a lot to talk about. I actually said they didn't give us much, but they actually gave us a lot, mostly just because of like theory crafting. People were saying that like there was a lot of complaints going on, especially in set 12 format. It isn't really a thing with set 13, since set 13 is pretty balanced from what I've heard. But people were saying that they need more defensive mechanics, they need all of these different things to change. And while I do agree with a lot of those points, it's not like most of the time when these complaints were being made, they were already in the middle of developing set 12, set 13, so it's not like they could have changed those sets right away, or else it would have just screwed up with the balancing without testing. So a new era is the perfect time to test new mechanics like defensive mechanics. So that's why we think they're adding this kind of stuff in order to not only shake up the format, but to also answer some of the questions and answer some of the complaints that the community has.
I think, to piggyback off what you're saying, I think the cat is a very good example of that, right? Because they have on-play of rearguard skills, which further your offensive game plan, but then they also have the on-play of guardian circle skills, which is a defensive
Exactly.
15 shield, which in a lot of games, people that don't run the cats aren't being able to see how much nicer it is to have that extra shield, because you get to remove cards that you've already soul blasted, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like you're getting free value out of just having a ride deck, which, at least personally for me, playing just the one cat has made a huge impact in me. Like, just not dying right away to some matchups, you know? Like, being able to be like, okay, well, this is going to stand with a 28k card while I'm on grade 2. Oh, let me use a 20k shield so I don't die, you know?
Yeah, and the thing is, like, people want more variety, and I would argue that Standard does have variety in deck building, but introducing a new mechanic, like you're saying, like what y'all are saying, the Z state, or adding dual-sided cards, adding these defensive mechanics, would just increase the excitement for the format and add so much more build diversity to the game.
Oh, 100%. I think, they definitely listen to the community, and I think a lot of people have good ideas. Some, maybe more so than others, because I know a lot of people, we brought it up, not just to keep, shitting on them, but some people are like, defensive is the only way to go in the game. I don't necessarily agree with that, but Bushiroad will definitely introduce mechanics to get people excited for it, the way Persona Ride originally grabbed multiple new players. Just being able to get that free 10k to your board. And then if it is something that's like a precursor to Stride, like Frank said, I mean, G units are what made people get really, really excited for G format back when they were introduced. And even players still playing Premium today, it's always about, like, what can a Stride do? How does it interact with my deck? So I think that they'll do a very good job going with whatever this new mechanic is.
And putting on my tinfoil hat, I don't know if y'all noticed this, but
I can't wait to see the tinfoil hat this time.
this is like very cope. Or not very cope, but it's very much like a reach. But this anime is coming out on the 10-year anniversary of when G came out. So
yes, and
sorry, go ahead.
Just to interject before, just real quick before Jack goes, we also know for a fact that we are getting a promo card that is supposed to support the Stride deck sets. Them along with Premium. So it's very interesting that we're getting known Stride support right before that.
Yeah, we're getting the Striders, like the dragons in set 13. We're getting the Stride specific support card, which Frank pointed out might be a G guard, which is very exciting. And then we're getting this, which is coming out 10 years after the most beloved series in Vanguard. So I think they're like, they obviously know that G is the most, like, beloved format. So if they can push the game more towards old school G, that would bring all the players back into the game.
Oh yeah, 100%. Because that's one thing that when Overdrive started, people were like, oh, why can't I use why can't I Stride anymore? That's why we got the Stride deck set. So if you introduce a mechanic from the very beginning that lets you do that, you'd grab a lot of old players along with new players.
Yeah.
Time to put on the foil hat with Jack in this moment. The fact that Bushy allows us to use the old G versions of cards, just I don't know, man. That's kind of sus.
It is very sus. Yes, very
That is
sus.
true.
Also, I don't think they confirmed it was 3 start decks, Lupe. I think they just said new trial decks.
Oh, that must have just been me and you getting it mixed up.
Probably, because we were used to 3. Maybe they'll do 5, because if this is like a new era, along with a new mechanic, wouldn't they want one for each nation?
Well, that's another thing I was going to point up, or bring up actually, that I forgot to right now. I wonder if they will continue to expand upon the nations, or maybe even condense some nations now that maybe even further, or make new ones since everything is supposed to be divine. It'd be interesting to see how the planet's shaped after being changed.
Yeah, that's one thing that people were pointing out. I wouldn't like maybe the new characters playing a new nation, or maybe he like is nationless. I don't know if I would really want that, for the simple reason, well, especially a new nation, because new nation would only clog up sets more. We already have 15 triple rares in a set, and I don't want any more. You know, like I want to keep it at that cap. So maybe it'll just, I think the condensing of nations might be a good idea. Or like you said, maybe this character will play like dual nation cards. Maybe that'll be like his pendulums, you know, he just like summons that shit out of nowhere.
Yeah, because like introducing more dual nation cards is one of the easiest ways and like short-term immediate fixes to we have 5 great nations, 6 nations total with lyrical, and you can't always support everything in one set. I mean, granted, they've done a really good job. That's not what I'm saying. Like every nation has always gotten support, and almost every archetype in the nations have gotten support. But we still have that rotation, and there are some lyrical players that have to wait a very long time because they're not getting support when the 5 great nations are getting support.
Yes.
So they could find a way to get all 6 support at once.
Yeah.
And to piggyback off this, if we're thinking that we're going to a G-esque format, right? Getting nationless cards also fixes that problem where people don't get support for a while, but this is a generic card that anyone can use. And then, of course, some nations are going to be able to use the card more effectively than others, but you never know, because with these series, and even in Prem, just making more generic, everybody can use cards helps the game.
Yeah, because to piggyback off what you're saying, that's why they have the Regalis pieces, and the Regalis pieces are super popular. So
yeah, and like even just with the Regalis pieces, people are like, oh well, I don't play this one because I think this is better.
Yeah,
and it just opens so many avenues just from a deck building perspective to help.
Imagine if standard gets their own Honolulu. Like,
that would be honestly insane.
Don't ever talk about that woman ever again.
Bro, no, they would cap it at 7 attacks.
They would cap it at 7 attacks. Dude.
You can have the 6 attacks, but 7 attacks is too much. No, it counterblasts 1. But we've been talking about this for a long time. That shows how good my English is. But I think it's just fun to talk about it. Like, all this prediction are coming out of like the team, and I think if three of us fuckers could come up with all these ideas, I think Bushiroad is cooking up something really cool.
Yeah, I hope they just don't burn the pot this time.
Let's hope they. There's like a conspiracy theory that every time they've had the word Z in a format, it's power creep the fuck out of it, which I don't know how many examples they have, because it's literally only one time, and that's GZ, which was the last season of G. So it's like the format was around for 3 years. It's only natural that it would get like power crept. But
yeah,
that's why I think that these new grade 3s, if they do have like the mechanic where they either flip over or like they're in between like a stride state, they'll have an ability like very similar icon to Persona Ride, so that they're the ones that can use it, so we don't break them in like Persona Ride decks, because it'd be kind of scary to like Persona Ride and then immediately use these new cards to like increase your power level like tenfold. I think that'd be a little
That
too
would
much.
honestly be pretty
That's why I
scary.
think they are going to do this, so that they can continue D series even more and pushing the boundaries of what new mechanics can do.
No, I think that's a good idea, and like, they obviously don't. Ever since I know Morty doesn't, he's not the main producer anymore, but ever since he was hired, we have seen a huge shift in card development from how like B series was, where they do consider balancing the game a lot more. Sometimes cards are a little more overbalanced than I think they should be, but I think that's a lot better than having here's a busted card like Gasteel who can just copy cards because why not?
Yeah. And the last thing we're going to talk about before
Or
we...
brainwash swirl.
Brainwash Swirler, yeah, that was kind of a oopsie. But, what was it? The last thing we're going to talk about is just, like, another thing going off of, like, the G thing is this is pretty much confirmed to be a sequel series. Like, not alternate universe. I mean, it's not 100% confirmed, but the fact that the last shot of Wildress alludes to, like, the planet glowing along with the stadium, and Masanori looking at his phone, and Megami going to the card shop. This proves it is a sequel, which once again proves that this is like the 10-year anniversary of G. So I think this is looking to be like one of the most experimental Vanguard series to date, and I'm super excited for it.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see what Bushiroad has in store for us.
Anyways, I think that's pretty much it for this video. Long video, but it's very different from the normal first thoughts. And I really hope that you guys watch to the end and enjoy the video. Kind of redundant to ask y'all if y'all watch towards the end when it's the end of the video. But I really appreciate y'all watching. Lupe, Frank, thank you so much for joining me on this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Yes,
I mean,
sir.
me and Jack, we talk about it a lot, like to ourselves. It's like, why not get y'all's thoughts on it and put our thoughts out there and see what y'all have to say about it.
Yeah, and
Bro,
it's
I'm a crackhead for Magnolia, man. The fact that we're getting a promo.
who knows, maybe Magnolia could get a Stride, or like these Stride-esque units.
Well, that's kind of what I was like alluding to when I was like, or we might get an older character get a new kind of like starter deck. Maybe she won't get one, but this is not the last we've seen of Magnolia, unless they pull like a OTT to Genesis.
Or they pull like a Kamui in the series, and he's playing like Medio Kaisers, or like Victor, which is not his deck in old series.
Okay, it's
That
time
is
for the
true.
copium part of the discussion. Bring Dieliner to standard, please.
I don't know,
I
man.
love my boy.
Oh, would you look at that, Frank? We're out of time. Anyways, again, guys, thank you so much for joining me, and thank you guys, the viewers, for watching the video. I really appreciate it, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye, guys.